Hello, bee people. I'm going to make a couple little videos since it's the beginning of bee season 2025, and I think it's the 5th of February, and this is the world famous bee dog Juno right here. She goes everywhere with us. Watch the videos. You should see her. She might cruise in the back, something. She's a really smart bee dog. She lets us know how it's going to be, or if anybody's sneaking up on us. But it's funny. The dogs, when we pull up to a bee yard and get out, depending on what they do, we know if we need to wear a jacket or not. If they just go cruising around looking for mice, it's a good day. If they head for the woods, it's not a good day. Or if they head under the truck, yeah, it's not a good day. So anyway, I was going to talk about some long straw hives here. What? You want out? Make a decision because we're doing a video. All right, go lay down. Go on. So we use all three of these. This is a 5-frame. It's exactly what it's called. 5 frames fit in this box. We do all our splits into a 5-frame box. You'll see that. That'll be beginning of April. It's coming up fast. It's coming up real fast. This is an 8-frame box. Just like I said, it'll hold 8 frames. And this is a 10-frame box. Holds 10 frames. The difference between the two are the room, right? The width. So 5 frames, nice and tight. The bees grow so fast in them. It's amazing how fast they grow. 8 frames, grow a little bit faster. 10 frames, or a little bit slower, let's say that. 10 frames, a lot slower. But the difference between them is the beekeeper themselves, how you manage your hives. 5-frame, you got to manage them fast. 8-frame, not quite as fast, but still again fast. 10-frame, there's a lot of room for, how do we say, I'm not going to say mistakes, but a lot of room for error in a 10-frame box. Most people start out in a 10-frame box. A lot of people go, well, I can't lift the 10-frame. I'll use an 8, it's lighter. It is. 5 frames, super light. It's my favorite hive. Are you going to bark or you want out? I'm going to let her out so you can drive me nuts. Go on. Go on. All right, that little interruption. So let's talk about hives for a minute. So this is a bottom board. Happens to be an 8-frame. Here's a 10-frame bottom board. And here's a 10-frame screen bottom board. So solid bottom boards, my preference. We're going to talk about that in a minute, the screen, but we're going to talk about the solid bottom board. On one side, if you buy these, if you make your own, then it's going to be different. So there's 3/4 of an inch here on this side. And if you flip it over, there's 3/8 of an inch on this side. So when I was young, this was summer, this was winter. We had no such thing as a reducing or mice guards. Those didn't exist back then. So when we flipped our hives over, our bottom boards over for winter, which was right after the honey flow, we would pull our hive apart, reconfigure the brood, try to push the girls down because we want them to be down in that bottom box for winter. And we would flip the bottom board over, and of course we would clean this side for next spring. And then here we go. So since, I should say that, I was going to say, since that's not how we really configure them anymore, they kind of use these now, but you're starting out for the year, do the 3/8 side. It's less room for the bees to have to defend. Let's say that. And of course, the 10 frame. I had these made out of some hardwood, and we boiled them in wax. This is like, I can hand this down to my grandbabies. I'm going to show you the difference between the 3/8 and the 3/4 here. So, put this down here. Can you see that? Yeah, barely, but you can see it. Back a little bit. So here's, if you can see the space here, like I can't put my finger through this, but I can here. A lot of times, the standard of everything people talk about is you put your entrance reducer, in here, and everybody's got it shoved under the box. It's stuck under that box, where if you put it on the 3/8 side and you stick that here, it's on the outside like this, and you can always just move it quick enough and easy enough. It's not under the box. It still serves the same purpose. This is a much better way. This doesn't fit this bottom board. It's a little tight. There it goes. So the same. Don't put it underneath the box. I know it looks like that's the way it's supposed to be, but it's not. You're supposed to put it like this so you can get it out. So you can get your hive tool up in there and pull out any garbage if that happens. So this would be a configuration for if you're just starting out for the year, is this. If you want it on a 3/4 and you want to put that, that's fine. We just leave ours on the 3/8 side year round. We don't use these reducers at all, but we have our a little more advanced techniques than if you're just starting out. Do this. So there's that. So you got your bottom board, you got your entrance reducer, you got your deep boxes. I think some people are going to want to start out with medium boxes as your brood. I'm going to show you right now why that's a bad idea. So, sorry, it's a little cold out here. These are medium frames. If you try to imagine these frames are stacked on top of each other in your boxes. So this is what you have. You have all this wood space in the middle of a brood chamber. That's a lot for the queen to go back and forth on. And it's also a lot of space to have to jump in the wintertime to get from one nest to the other part of the nest. So you'll lose a lot of bees this way. Now, if you live somewhere where it's nice and warm, sure. But I live in Cincinnati, Ohio. We're on the 49th parallel. So anywhere in the Kentucky or all the way north, this is not a configuration you would want to use. You would want to use a deeps, minimum 2. I know a lot of people overwinter singles. I don't know how. I don't want to take that chance, truthfully. So you've got them down in this first brood box, and they only have one space to have to get by to get in the top brood box, and that's where they're going to be this time of year. It's it's February 5th, I believe. So that's the difference right there. That's why you should start out with deep boxes and use your mediums for honey production. So there's that configuration. Now, I'm going to talk about this. I don't use these anymore. I'm going to say they came out late 80s, early 90s. The whole idea with these were that when the varroa started, that the varroa would fall off the bees as they're moving around and maybe even picked off by some bees if they have that genetic trait, and they would fall through, I don't know if you can see this screen, onto this, it's just signage, and you could smear some grease on here, Crisco, something like that, and they would stick to it. So we figured out, or whoever did the count, right, that it was 11% fall off of the bees. So you lost 11%. That's really not a large enough number to help the bees with the varroa problem. So varroa issues, that's a whole nother video. I'm just talking about the hive, but I'm giving you a little reason why the screen board, we don't use it any longer. We were also finding out that, and these are things we noticed, right? The bees show us stuff all the time. So the bottom board, we would always see little burrcomb on the bottom of our boards coming up to the bottom of our frames. So, and not on here. In fact, we would never even see the bees walking on this screen whatsoever. And I know people are going to say, oh, you can pull this out for ventilation. Sorry. And that's true. And you can't for the bottom board. But one day it had rain. So a couple of things I'm going to explain. So one day it had rain and it was kind of steamy. And we always noticed with the screen bottom board, our brood was high, right? So there's a couple of things that were going on here. The sunshine, because we're facing the sun with our hives, was up here, and the queen didn't like the sun. That's why our brood was so high. So we were losing this much of our first brood chamber. And then that one day, and I was like looking at these hives, why do you give me more honey than you? And I opened that hive up, and I was down in that first brood box. And when I looked down and I saw that steam rising, I knew exactly what the problem was. And we got rid of our boards after that point in time. So they don't like the screen. And another thing, once we started taking them apart, there was so much garbage because we weren't once a week getting in there and cleaning this, because the bees wouldn't clean it because they didn't like the screen. So there's all this buildup, and if you're not in there cleaning this thing all the time, you know, that's perfect place for other insects to develop. Your hive beetles larva was happening in there, and it was just a mess. So we had like 75 of these that I didn't give them away, we just burned them. I just didn't want to give somebody else any kind of problems that these bottom boards may have had. Even though I've been inspected since the 70s every year, I've been clean every year, which that's awesome for me. So that's why we don't use screen bottom boards. You're more than welcome to make your own decision, and there's going to be people out there that swear by them. I don't. So now let's talk about the next thing. So we've got our entrance reducer, we got our solid bottom board, we've got it flipped over to 3/8 side because we're going to start putting bees in this thing. It's cold in here. It's real cold outside. My nose is running. There's no snot coming out, but my nose is running. I never get sick, and I swear it's the honeybees. Always having my hands in there and that propolis all over me all the time. I can't tell you the last time I was sick. 40, 50 years ago, maybe. All right, so, well, we talked about the bottom board. We talked about the brood chamber. Let's talk a little bit about your frames. Let's back up just a tad. Your equipment. Where you purchase this equipment is very important. It's important to your pocketbook. Now, I love Amazon. I spend so much money on Amazon. I got their TV thing. I got their insurance for anything I buy. In fact, I used it today. It brings it to the door. Oh my God, how awesome is that? But as far as bee equipment, maybe their smokers and stuff are okay, but their woodenware, stay away. Run away. Don't buy any of that stuff. I know they got some fancy names. I won't say them for somebody want to sue me, but stay away. One reason is they are less. I'll give it that. And that's what you're going to get. If you plan on doing this, it's already expensive. And so don't buy it cheap. Buy something that maybe if it doesn't work out for you, you can get your money back or pretty much of it anyway. If you buy something that's going to fall apart, nobody wants to buy that. And anybody that's going to buy bee equipment already knows that. So quality, buy quality. There's all kinds of brand names out there, big names, go there. This box here, we have these made for us because we buy so many. This box here with the dovetails, I think they're called dovetails. This is, I think they call it like a Pure Hive by Premier. And then this box here, and you can kind of tell the difference. These, they got 2 screws at the top. This one only has a single. So like this, got 2 screws, and versus this has a single. So this was made up in Michigan by a company called Beeline. They're nice boxes. I guess what I'm getting at is if you're going to buy woodenware, you need to find somebody that you're going to buy it from and be constant with that. And especially when you go to order this stuff, pay attention of the dimensions. Don't just pay attention to 5 frame, 8 frame, 10 frame. They vary between different companies. And if you go buying stuff from one company and then you turn around and buy something from another company, look, there's a solid 1/4 inch difference here. Maybe 3/8, but a solid 1/4. Both of them are 8 frame highs. They both work equally as well. But obviously we don't buy these anymore, right? I had got a good deal on some, and then when I got them, I'm like, oh man. So anyway, that's that. So pay attention to the dimensions. Obviously, I didn't. Now, frames. We'll just work our way up. So here we have frames. This is I brought this because there's a textbook example of what a brood frame should look like. And if I get a little closer, it does you any good. This is beautiful. It's got the green line on it. So this was a brand new frame last year. They worked it pretty good. You can just see how dark it gets in one season. The green last year, because green was last year, this year is blue. I gave you a quick little thing. Remember this now, it's real simple. Will you raise good bees? So year 2, 3, 4, 5, back 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, right? So will, white, so on and so on. It's blue for bees, blue. So we write right on our hives. So, here we're coming back around to blue. There's green, there's red. So they'll fade. And that's good because now I got somewhere else to write on again. If you buy marked queens, they'll be marked with the same color, different ink than these. These are more, they say they're permanent, but nothing's permanent anymore. So now, back to the frames. Same thing. Different manufacturers have different frames. Probably, if you're new, you're going to buy it unassembled. And if you buy all this stuff unassembled, use glue, use a square. Don't just put it together thinking it's going to be square. It's not. That's you. If it's not square, you're going to hate yourself once that glue sets up and this thing doesn't work. Same with frames. If you're going to buy them broke down, then the same thing. You need them square this way and you need them square this way. If this is all crooked, your comb's going to be crooked and it's just going to be a mess in there and it's not going to be easy to inspect your hives. So all of this being square, because bees are square. They're vertical and they are definitely square. They know how to build a hive. So you can see, here's some differences where this was done with a nail brad. This was done with staples. This was done with 1/4-inch staples. This was done with 3/8 staples. A lot of times the difference on the end bars, you can see how this is much thicker than these two. This one's thinner, that one's a little thicker, this one's real thick. So what happens with that is it's so much stronger. Now these here, I would buy these constantly forever. They're made by a company, Beeline. They're the ones that made the too small a hive for me, but I buy their frames. They're so tough. I mean, these are the best frames in the whole country, hands down, my opinion. Now, as far as the ones I buy, I'll tell you this, the ones I buy are the bottom board, the bottom of the frame has grooved. The top has this wedge that you can take out if you want. That way you could put wax in here, and you got the drilled end bars. That way you can run your wire if you do use wax. You can also use fishing line, kind of some heavy duty fishing line. If you don't want to run the wire, fishing line does pretty good. You just stick your one little nail here, run that fishing line through there, pull it super tight, and have another nail there around the nail, drive it in, piece of cake. We don't use wax. It has a tendency to warp. And as soon as that warps, then your comb's warped, the next one's warped, the next one's warped. No fun. So we use plastic foundation. We do use wax for special things, but not for our regular brood or our honey. That could be a whole nother video. So we buy our frames from Beeline, but we buy our foundation from somewhere else. They don't sell the foundation that I like. So this foundation smells good. If it don't smell good, the bees aren't going to like it. If you wouldn't want to put this in your mouth, neither do the bees. Just that's an easy reference. So this smells just like honey. This was made by a company called Premier. They have fancy names for their stuff. I don't know what they call their fancy name here. That's just foundation. They're a new company, just a few years. They sent me some of this years ago. I really like it. I still use it. I also use foundation from another company called Acorn. I like both of them equally as well. Premier had a little trouble at first that one of their new lines that came out, this was warped a little bit and caused me some trouble. The last batch I got from them, fine. I think they had some troubles and they got it all fixed. What's nice about this is, you know, I can just snap it in and I can keep it in the box that it comes in, which keeps the foundation nice and fresh versus buying all my frames and it already be in it and it's sitting out here in the condex, you know, drying out and losing that super honey smell that the bees love, and they get right on it. Here's some that they just started. We call this pulling wax. They just started on this. The year ended and I just pulled it out. I take away everything that they're not going to be able to use for winter, and this was one of them. So there's your frames, why I buy what I buy, and then talked about our boxes. Now you're going to want to feed your bees if you're buying them new this year. So how you feed them and what kind of bees you bought really matters. If you buy packages or you buy nukes or if you buy a whole box of bees, each one of them, you know, has a different management. So I'm going to finish the wood and then I'm going to make a little video on your bees that you buy for this season if you're a new beekeeper. So the next thing after this, and you would want 2 deep boxes for your brood chamber for this season. The next thing after this would be an inner cover. Here's one. It's plastic. Man Lake sells these. I've had this one since the 70s. It just won't die. So they do make most of them anymore are wood. They have these holes in them. This one is a slot. That's for I can't remember the name of them, but a little bee escape that you can snap in there to try to get the bees out of your honey supers. Whole nother subject. So here's your inner cover. And then this is a telescoping lid. Would fit over top of this if I had a 10 frame. These are 8s I brought. And the reason you have that inner cover, mostly so they don't glue your lid down to the box and you'd never get it off. But so that's one kind of standard inner cover setup that you would purchase. Now, you can do other things. So let's say you want to use this as a migratory cover. We have them made with this 3/4 space. So we could put a pollen patty in here during the feed them. We could put a little bit of sugar in there. Mostly we have these made for re-queen our hives often. And we can put the queen cage right there and not have to stick it down between the frames, which always causes trouble. So they just sit on top. You don't need an inner cover with them because you can get around the edge and just pop them loose. Another nice thing about this, if you got a couple of hives, you can push them together in the wintertime or real close. They don't really touch. You still need room for moisture to run down them. So telescoping cover, but you need an inner cover with a telescoping cover, migratory cover. Now, I say you need a inner cover for a telescoping cover, but that's not true. If you use a material like this, thermal something, we just call it mylar because that silver stuff is mylar. If you put that on, then you don't need an inner cover. They can't glue your lid down to this. Another thing about this is it helps them maintain their brood temperature, right? So I'm going to have to get into that next. Let's just leave this where we're at. That way it don't be too long. And I'll make a couple more here. Same setup, and we'll talk about some other things about when you purchase your bees and what the differences are of purchasing bees. So, hey, keep smiling. The season's gonna be wonderful, I hope. I keep trying to do this watch, but for whatever reason, it just does not like me. I'm gonna go ahead and stop this. See you in a minute.